we don't need this
Okay.
thing.
I will remove it. I'll really remove it.
It's much more streamlined now. You can see things much more clearly. When I joined Toastmasters, table topics was this terrifying thing. It was terrifying because, why? Why for you is it terrifying?
Say something inappropriate or weird or...
Inappropriate or weird. Now, we have people in our society who never do that, never say anything inappropriate or weird. Our politicians are models for saying the right thing all the time. Right? If you could use some Toastmasters time, I think. What else? What else is about table topics that makes it...
You're not prepared.
You're not prepared. You can't prepare. Who would agree with that? You can't prepare for table topics. Who would disagree with that totally? 2 hands up for me. Because you can prepare for table topics. You can prepare ahead of time to answer table topics. Is that cool or cool? Would that be exciting?
Yeah.
If you had a very simple model that you could use all the time. There are many models for answering questions. There are many ways, structures, and so on, but I just find it too complicated to have too many, so I've reduced it to a smaller number. 1. Now, how many would agree that 1 is less than say, 3? Okay, we're good. So it's easier. Do you agree? So far, theoretically, I'll show it to you in a sec. And we'll get down to it. I need some help. Can someone hand out these things?
And about this side, did you have some
Yeah,
on that
bit
side?
of here, bit of there. And what can you do before the meeting to prepare for table topics? You haven't even got a question yet. What can you do to prepare to answer a table topic?
Read the newspaper.
Become aware. Read the newspaper, watch television selectively, have an opinion. Have an opinion on everything you hear. Instead of someone says, oh, what do you think of that? I don't know. I don't know, what do you think? Have an opinion. How about when your boss comes to you and asks you, how are things going? How many of you answer with the one word? Fine. Where did we learn to say those words? School, when we're teenagers, your parents are asking you, how's it going? What's the answer?
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Prepare ahead of time by becoming aware, by having an opinion on things. So practice when you're with people having an opinion and expressing that opinion. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. I mean, the politicians show us that all the time. Another thing we can do is to have a very, very simple mental model for answering table topics questions. How many of you have ever taken my speech writing workshop, the first one called, what's it called?
Write a speech in 15 minutes.
It's 5 steps to impact.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I forget these things. Who cares? Some people in the audience always know. So I am going to rush the rest of you through this model. And what's really cool, I think, is I use the same model for writing prepared speeches and for answering table topics. So how many models do we have?
1.
1. This one model gives you a good speech and a great table topic answer. There are other models for speech writing that gives you great speeches. I think it gives you a good speech and it gives you a great table topic answer. I think I've shown that over the years. Anyway, where are we? Oh yeah, let's go teach the model. How many of you, when you hear a question, a table topics question, the first thing you do is start panicking? And your mind starts racing and 10,000 ideas come into your head all at once. right? Your mind is screaming, and you say a couple sentences, and you change directions, you go, oh, there was that thing, and you, oh yeah, I forgot that other thing I was gonna, then you come over here, you say this other thing, then you go over, and then you remember that other thing you were gonna say, you come over here like that. And it kind of meanders around like the Mississippi River. Have you seen some of those answers? And you're watching, you're going, it's like a tennis ball, back and forth. You know, not sure where it's going. The first thing we do when we're getting ready, so I'll teach the method first, and then we'll back up again, and I'll say when to start preparing it. It's basically it's visualization of the mental model, but I have to teach that mental model first before we can visualize it. Okay? Good or good? All right. What's that?
I was just wondering if they could see, but you moved it over, so now I don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I'm getting hot. I'm not looking hot, I'm getting hot. We get a question where we're preparing a speech. The first thing we do is what? Very first thing. Now, a friend of mine, John Watkiss, says to start doing research. In answering a table topic, we don't have a whole lot of time for research. And I disagree with this point of view, and I told him he disagreed with me, and we agreed to disagree because that's how we are. I say no. Research is like wading through a pool of letters looking for coherent thoughts. You're hoping something shows up. Laser focus on one thing only. That word, and some of you will have different words for it, but I call it thesis. Very first thing is to come up with a thesis. Or in the case of table topics, it's the answer. And that's it. That's the very first thing we do. Now, the difference is, I could give a speech. How many of you enjoy taxes? Okay, good. You're working with CRA?
No.
Okay, good. I have a lot of friends over there, at least people who call me anyway. Taxes. Watch what happens now if I say, I'm going to speak about taxes versus taxes are too low. Or taxes are too high. Do you see the difference between speaking about something and making a statement? So the thesis, now some of you might prefer the word premise, if that works for you. Whatever idea works for you, it's the statement, the bold statement, the one idea that you want the audience to go away with. If they didn't hear anything else, or they just passed out and woke up to hear this one sentence only, you'd say, ah, they've got it. One sentence. Now in the case of tabletop, we try to break it down into one or two words. For example, tell us about your favorite color. And what's the first thing that might pop in your mind? It shouldn't be, 23 years ago, I remember walking down through a garden lane.
No, it's the color.
It's probably the color. We can reduce that to one word, so that's your thesis. And you know the rest of it. My favorite color is red. No. Did I get the wrong answer there? Is it okay? Like if I said red, and you disagreed, I don't get kicked out of the club or anything, do I? So can we agree that there's no wrong thesis? Especially here in this room, there's no wrong thesis or turning it around. Anything you say is correct in this room. That removes some pressure to get it right. Alrighty. Now, where do we go? Where do we go? When we need, who would say we need some content? We need some stories or something to add to that. And what I call that is, I call that points. So what we want to do is, the second thing is to identify, not write out, but just identify the points. How many of you have ever heard the rule of threes? You must say everything, yes. You must say everything in threes. I found that with the 2-minute table topic, that doing things in threes didn't let me get to the level of detail that I'd like to get to. I also found out that 3 was harder to remember than 2. Call it points, you can also call it headings, stories, whatever word works for you to get those blocks of the speech. And it looks something like this. Now we have at the heart of all this, it depends on how you want to draw it, the whole thing is the thesis, or you can see the thesis is in the middle. But the point is just the heading. We don't want to draft it because our mind's going to get too cluttered. So if you open up your handout to the memory map, you'll see it there, thesis, point, point. So mentally, the first thing I do is I go thesis, and I go point, point. When I'm getting ready, when I'm sitting down in the chair, I've got 3 blanks in my mind, and as the question comes, I just write them in. Thesis, point, point, I'm ready to go. As I stand, I can fill in some of the details. By doing that, I quiet that monkey that comes up with the 10,000 things that I should have said. And I go, shut up! 2. Once I have the 2, I go with it. The worst thing to do is to have the 2, it's the wrong 2. I need to come up with a different 2, a better 2. No, because we need to start talking. Have an argument up here with myself. So whatever we come up with first, that's it, I'm going. We don't question it because the exercise in this room is not to get the right answer, it's to get an answer that sounds like it's logical, even if it isn't. An answer that sounds interesting, an answer that comes out with enthusiasm and persuasion, not the right answer. So we never judge the ideas that come up. They're good or good. Thesis, point, point. And we're ready to go. And you're probably thinking there's more to it than that. Okay. What do we begin a speech with? Okay, I'm going to change that word to opening. I used to use that word. I changed it to opening a few months ago because it got confused with the introduction of the speaker by the Toastmaster, so I use opening it. If you want to say introduction, it's fine. But I haven't said where to come up with that yet. The answer is we come up with the introduction after we have our thesis, point, point. How many of you ever heard the phrase, begin with the conclusion in mind, because that's the last thing the audience hears? They were sort of right. They were sort of right in the sense that the thesis occurs in the conclusion. So let's draw out a structure for the opening and the conclusion. Watch this, what happens here. Alrighty. Oh yeah, there was one other step in here. That's actually step 3. I don't do this when I'm doing a table talk, but if I'm writing a speech, it's the details. In doing a table topic, so we're going to have an intro here. Opening, thank you. Someone correct me anytime. And we'll have a conclusion. Good? See how it's building up now? After we get our thesis and point, the 2 points amplify the thesis, obviously. 2 things that come to mind. The opening and the conclusion support this structure.